Hey, welcome back to the Crave Show with Chris and JRuss, where you're about to spend a really good hour listening to silly stuff.
The preemptive.
Yeah,
That's fantastic. I
I
love
will
it.
not call it a waste.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were just kind of off screen talking about Summerfest that's coming up, and the the angle organizers are part of the Free Fly group, and I sent a message today or yesterday asking the organizers to do their best to answer some of the questions that we give to people who want to be certified as an angle leader at Scottish Chicago. So it's a written test, and it has some just general movement questions and then some specifics to Scottish Chicago, the runway headings and stuff like that. But Chris and I were just talking about one of his friends and that it was a hard test and wasn't expecting to have to pass the written test before Summerfest. But um,
Hey, real quick, because we have talked about this before, but maybe it'll be helpful for people listening. That you, why did you even come up with that to begin with? Because that's exactly what you use at. I mean, it's the same exact thing, right? That you
mm,
use at Skydive
yeah,
Chicago.
yeah,
I mean,
that
this
is
is
the
not
exact
something
test.
special for organizers. This is what you
No,
use. So this is really a big topic, and I think a lot of people are beginning to think about this more and more. Some places are trying to implement this type of not I don't know, test is the right word, but just making sure that people are so tell me why how did this come about and why? Like I think it's good for people to hear.
well, it came about after a request from Anthony, who's been on the show. He's the dropzone manager at Scottish Chicago. We had a few close together in time incidents where bingo flyers ended up close together in space with
Mhm.
belly groups. And
Yeah,
even a couple times it happened, it was very experienced leaders who made a mistake or didn't do what they said they were going to do. And the people that were sort of interacted with the belly groups were people from Rhythm that are, in my opinion, very aware of what's happening. They're
sure.
training at Scotch Chicago not every
Yeah,
day, but a lot, thousands of
yeah.
jobs that they have as experience. They are more aware probably than most people in freefall. Um, so when they said, "Hey, we're having close calls with these angle flyers," Anthony took it seriously and asked me to develop some kind of certification system for the drop zone where we can. Oof, I hesitate to use the word control, but it needed a measure of control
Mhm.
to just ensure the safety of everyone that wants to jump at Scottish Chicago. And so it became a written test that was followed by a discussion with someone that was authorized to sign people off for the first couple seasons. That was just me. Um, the last two seasons, I think it's been, this is maybe the second season of Leslie and Dan are a skydiving couple that are local to Chicago during the summer, and they run ankle camps, and they were a very easy sort of segue away from me. It was sucking up a bunch of my time, and I was doing it for free. And
Yeah.
they started
What
charging like $400 or something. So
what's their
um,
last name?
Leslie Menetrier and Dan Adams.
Okay. And you've mentioned them a couple times before.
Yeah. Um, so anyway, in answer to your original question, it came at the request of the drop zone manager to, hey, we got to kind of put something in place here.
Yeah. So I mean, what sparked the conversation a minute ago before we started recording was I was kind of sharing with you and laughing because so we've got JRuss. You have how many organizers do you have for Summerfest? Do you know off the top of your head?
34, something like
Okay,
that
I mean
for
that,
free
that's
flight
that's a
angle.
lot of that's a lot of people, and
Yeah.
so I'm guessing some of those people you know firsthand. Some of them I'm guessing are like recommendations from people that you trust. Is that fair?
Yeah,
Is that
I would
accurate?
say this year is consistent with other years where there's probably of those, I would say a quarter that I don't know personally.
Okay.
Not very many.
Yeah.
And most of the people I would consider a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we were talking about is JRuss had sent out on, we have a group text going on with JRuss and all of the organizers for Summerfest. And he sent out basically the exact same, I'm going to say test with quotes that you use for, I mean, I don't know if you call it a test, but that's essentially what it is. You're just trying to see where people's knowledge is. Like, how
Yeah.
much do they understand and know about leading and organizing movement jumps and groups. And so you sent that out to that group text. And it's I mean, I'm going to say it is a little bit intimidating because there's a lot of questions. It covers a wide range of knowledge.
Mm.
And it's like, oh man, okay. Because to me, what it communicated, which I think is very good, it communicated, okay, number one, JRuss is taking this very serious. Like,
Mm.
this is not, he's not messing around. This is not playtime. He really wants to know where we're like, do we understand what we are getting into and what we're doing? Do we understand the responsibility that we are taking on as organizers of these movement groups to keep people safe and to do a good job? I was laughing because when you sent that text out to everybody, it was a long text with all these questions that said, hey, answer these questions and send it back to me as a private message, right? So you could, and you also did say, you said, basically, I just want to see where the knowledge gap is. So from your perspective, you're saying, look, you guys are organizing, you're going to do these movement jumps. I want to make sure that everybody knows what they need to know. If there's a knowledge gap, you want to take care of that, right? Is that essentially what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's fantastic. I think that's great. And I would assume that if all of the attendees of Summerfest knew that, they would really be thankful for that. Because that means you are taking their safety very serious. And that's awesome. Um, so that's what spurred it on because my friend who's one of the organizers, he was like, oh my goodness, he was kind of like, what is this? I don't know, like he kind of felt intimidated by it, which is totally understandable.
Yeah.
So we
It's
were
a
talking
lot.
about laughing. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, there's going to be 600 to 800 people at Summerfest,
Man.
most of
Wow.
whom, three-quarters of those are, or maybe more, are not going to angle fly. And they
Yeah.
just want to get out on their jump and have a safe skydive and not meet up with somebody from another group
Yeah.
because maybe the leader doesn't understand, I don't know, the systems or
Yeah.
what we expect out of angle flying. So yeah, I think it's a responsibility to the best of our ability to make sure that the people are prepared for what they're going to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, dude, if I'm being honest, I gotta say, like coming up there as an organizer for Summerfest, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm like, wow, this is a big deal. Like, I'm trying to get up there a day early so I can at least make a few jumps to familiarize myself with the drop zone, so I can see from the sky, like, what does everything look like? I want to know what I'm doing, but even doing that, I'm still like, "Ugh, I'm nervous.
Yeah.
I want to take care of everybody. To me, it
Yeah.
feels like a big deal.
I would say to anybody who is going to organize, don't be nervous. Like, um, it's, but then I was also going to add to the other thing, there's going to be 5 or 6 planes running at the same time and, potentially parallel jump runs and, it's busy. Uh,
Yeah,
and that's, 3 otters and 2 Skyvans and a caravan.
yeah,
It's,
there's a lot.
they don't usually run the caravan. But, still 5 full-size planes to run at the same time can be a lot. So,
Yeah,
um, yeah, it's good to have people understand a lot that there's a lot going on. But I don't know about being nervous. I think that when you get there, you're going to get started, and it's going to be it's a lot of people, and get used to the system the first day, and maybe a little overwhelming the first day, but it's going to be good. And at the end of the day, it's just you know somewhere between 100 and 1,000 jump people that want to have a good time on their skydive, and you know how to deal with that.
yeah, that's cool. Thank you. That makes me feel better.
Yeah.
So that little test, or I'm just going to call it a test for now, just to make it
Mhm.
easy. Where do you expect that the knowledge gap is?
Well, I mean, I sent out a little bit of information about the hook, but that
Hmm.
should be something that raises questions, I hope.
Hmm.
When people think about, the direction of the hook, um, I don't expect people to necessarily know who the SCTAs are, or what is required equipment, but um, some of the things like how many flags are acceptable, how many red flags do you need to see before your jump becomes something that you maybe want to rethink? That it just forces people to think about things. And to be honest, some of those questions are fairly subjective in nature. How do you define a movement jump, or how do you define an angle jump as opposed to just a flat track? Like, what's the differentiation there? And that's very subjective.
Yeah.
So I think that the things that are specific to Skyline Chicago will, if you don't jump there, those will be a little bit harder for people to say. And then hopefully some of the stuff that's just a part of all movement jumps will be a little bit easier for people who have experience with that.
Yeah. Well, I have not filled it out yet, but like I told you a minute ago,
Two
I was
people
like,
have.
oh, have they really? Oh,
Hmm.
that's good.
Yeah, two people got back
Um,
to me right away.
is
But
it
well, I
was
think
it
that
people that you kind of expected to do it quickly?
I wasn't sure if I had any expectation, to be honest, but it didn't surprise me the people that got back, who
Yeah.
have quite a bit of experience. So
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
they just felt comfortable shooting from the hip there, and I said do your best, so it wasn't meant to be like, if you don't do this, pack your bags. It's just,
Don't come. Don't show up.
yeah. It was kind of the response that you said you had is makes me happy. Like, that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted people to think, whoa, okay, they're taking this seriously, and there's a lot
Yeah.
going on, and let me just, even if it's been years since you were in high school or college and you had to take a test, those moments are like, oh, okay, I got to think about this stuff, and that's what I
Yeah.
wanted more than everything being right or wrong.
Cool. That's cool. Well, so in a second, I want to get into, we talk, I told you that we kind of have I have a topic that I want to talk about today because of it's a comment from a listener. But before we get into that, um, specifically with movement jumps. So I had something happen just the other day to me on a movement jump that I wanted to talk to you about, and I want to hear your. I'm nervous, but I want to hear your honest feedback. Like, give it to me straight and correct me and tell me what I need to hear to make sure that I'm being better next time. Okay. So I'm
Sure.
going to tell you what happened, and then you just give it to me straight.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was at the drop zone. I was organizing. I had a small group, a couple people who wanted to do an angle jump. I was like, cool, let's go. Um, Another organizer at the drop zone, he was there, and I was like, hey, he wanted to join us. He's like, awesome. So he's led and organized a lot of movement jumps. So he and I feel very comfortable together. We've jumped together a lot. Um, and then we had two other people so it's four people on a movement jump. And it was a very simple jump. We're just going to exit the plane. We're going to just move off of jump run and fly basically in a straight line off of jump run. If we get really far, we're going to make a little bit of a turn so that we're not going too far. And then, we'll break off and deploy. So nothing crazy, nothing fancy, just very simple. All right. So we get in the plane, take off. We're going up to altitude. As we're climbing, we're like, dude, there's way more clouds than we expected. It had been completely clear skies. And then all of a sudden, all these clouds are showing up, and like big, beautiful, puffy clouds. So as we're climbing the altitude, I was like, hey guys, I told my crew, my group, I was like, hey, if there's a lot of clouds, like we may have to turn this into a static jump. Like we may not move if there's too many clouds. If I can't see the drop zone, if I can't see where we're going, like we're just gonna do something different. It'll just be a vertical jump. We'll just like head up or head down or something. And they were like, okay, that's fine. I mean, they wanted to move, but they understood. They said, okay. So when we get up to altitude and we get on jump run, so the first thing is jump run was, we expected it to be basically to the east, and now jump run was completely to the south. So it was basically 90 degrees, completely different from what we expected. I was like, okay, this is a little bit weird, but okay, I get it. And when we looked, where we wanted to fly on that jump run was completely wide open. There was no clouds. There was, like, we had a lane that we could fly into. We could stay where we wanted to stay off of jump run. It's like, okay, it actually looks good. And we had a belly group after us. And it's a group of guys that they're older, but I know them. They're really nice guys, very chill. I told them, I said, hey, we might not move. We might do just a vertical jump, just like a free fly jump. And they're like, that's fine. If you guys do that, do you want us to go out first? And I said, yeah, actually, if we don't move, I'm going to let y'all out first. And they're like, okay, cool. They were being very, very accommodating. We get to jump run. And I was like, me and the other organizer, we look, it's like, no, it actually looks very good. We think this is fine. So I told the guys, hey, we're going to go ahead and move. We're going to angle fly. So we go out. I'm leading the jump. We exit the plane. We're all together. And then I transitioned to my back, and I told the other guy that is an organizer and a leader, I like signaled to him like, hey, you lead. He's like, cool, he got it. So he's leading. And so here's what happened. As we're flying, he starts taking us the direction. I was like, that's kind of weird. I thought that's strange. We shouldn't be going that direction. But I trusted him. I was like, he knows what he's doing. I can't see. Maybe I'm just off. Like I don't know what, my internal compass is not right. So I was like, okay, I trust him. I'm following him. Everybody's together. And then we fly a little bit, and then he turns us back to the other direction.
Can I ask for clarification here?
Yes.
When you flipped over your back, you said, okay, you lead. He understood.
Yes.
The moment when you thought, I don't know about the direction that we're going, are you still on your back, or did you turn over?
Yes. No, I'm on my back.
Okay.
But I just trusted him. I was like,
Yeah.
he knows what he's doing. He's a good leader. I trust him. And so we fly for a little bit in that direction. That I was a little bit like, that's weird. And then we turn the other direction, which made me feel bad. I was like, okay, good. This is where I actually think we should be going, just based on my internal compass, but I can't see the ground. We fly, we're all together, we break off, deploy. Where I deployed was totally fine. I felt good about it. I did see the belly group, but they were pretty far from me. But I felt good about it. I was like, okay, cool. I guess it was fine. We get down on the ground, and the belly group, they were very nice about it, but one of our people had ended up basically underneath them. Not really underneath them, but very close to them, enough that it was uncomfortable. And they were like, hey, what happened? That we talked about it. So what actually happened was, when I went to my back and I asked the other guy to lead, as we're flying, there was a cloud that had moved over to where we were trying to go. And so his thought was, well, I'm going to go around the cloud and then turn back underneath it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But when he turned around the cloud, I'm just going to say to the left, because that's actually what it was. When he was going to the left around the cloud, that was actually taking us back towards that belly group. But in his mind, he thought, we're just getting around the cloud. He didn't want to fly straight through this big, huge, puffy cloud where we couldn't see anybody. That was his thought. And so we flew around it. And then as we got past it, he flew us under it and back the other direction. But one of our people, when they broke off, that caused them to break off in the direction of the belly group. So as they tracked and then deployed, they were pretty close to that belly group that followed us out. Does that all make sense?
Totally.
So that's pretty much the details. What I really want to hear your feedback, your thoughts, your questions. What do you think?
Well, a couple of things come to mind. It's difficult to armchair quarterback that, because I didn't see the sky that you guys were looking at. And it sounds like two experienced leaders who are familiar with that drop zone both felt, hey, this is okay. We can do this. it is interesting to me that when you got into free fall, there was cloud avoidance that had to happen. And
Mhm.
part of the part of what I think of as sort of normal thought process for an angle jump is if you can't see the entirety of your pathway with clarity, you can't do an angle.
Mhm.
And it sounds a little contradictory on that idea that, well, it looks good, but then, hey, we're gonna have to dodge this cloud. And
Yeah.
that, um, those are, you know what I mean? Those are in opposition.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
um,
No, please give me your like
yeah,
unadulterated, like I want to know what you actually think. Like give it to me, man, because we want to be
I mean,
better.
if you were talking to somebody about off-field landings, we talked about that last week. The
Yeah.
moment that it crosses your mind, hey, I might not make it. Okay, that's it. You're not making it. Go land somewhere safe and don't push a bad situation.
Yeah.
That logic probably could have been better employed. Hey, you know what? It's gotten really cloudy, and
Yeah.
this was unexpected. Let's just go straight down.
Yeah.
Um,
Damn.
so
See,
that
that's
would
what
have
I should
been
have done.
sort of an easier, like when you start having those second thoughts about can we do this? Because obviously, when we're sitting on the ground and the clouds look totally solid because we're looking at them at a weird angle, and then we go up and okay, well now we can go straight down because there are gaps in the cloud, but from the
Yeah.
perspective that we have, we can't see. And
Yep.
and now I don't know, your perspective is different and you didn't see that. But just again, the first moment you start thinking about it, that's probably the moment to change it to, hey, let's just go straight down. And then the
Yeah.
second
See, that's
big thing that came to mind is that, um, and so you just got to take this for what
no,
it is because I don't know you
dude,
well
lay it
enough,
on
your
me,
flying skills
please.
to say it, but most people that I ever observe don't have a great roll from one body flight surface to the other, and so
Okay.
their heading control when they do that is suspect. And so if you rolled on your back and kept leading for a few moments and thought you were on a straight line, and you didn't look over your shoulder, you didn't have that awareness or perception or whatever, and everybody instantly followed you, now your navigation is off,
Yeah.
right? And it could be significant, 90 degrees or more, which means
Sure.
you're no longer in a position to make judgments about what's happening with the leader. And
Yeah.
so when you thought it was suspect, it could have been real suspect, or maybe not. But that's why I asked, like the moment you thought, hey, this isn't, I don't know if we're supposed to be going this way, back on your belly. Like
Mm.
take in the information that you can,
Mm-hmm.
or if you have to move out to the side or whatever, safely do it. But
Yeah.
right away, you need your sort of Wi-Fi signal needs to get reconnected where you've got all the information that you need to make this a safe jump. Because at the
Yeah.
end of the day, you're one of the organizers, and it sounds like the other guy's experienced, but again, I mean, if anyone could visualize if each of my mistakes was a little pebble, there'd be a freaking mountain behind me. And,
Yep.
and everybody makes those. And so this again, so there, I think you had two mental markers there where you could have said, oh, this doesn't feel right, or I'm second guessing what's happening right now. But you went with the original plan or kind of stuck to
Yeah.
what was going on where,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, dude, you're spot on. That's thank you. And I think what we didn't consider, and this is going to sound really, really stupid. I know it does, but we just didn't, is that those clouds are moving. I mean, that's so obvious now, right? Like,
Yeah.
I know that sounds dumb, but when we were in the plane on jump run, he cuts the engines, he pulls the flaps, the plane slows down, green light. It's like, oh, there's a huge, beautiful open lane exactly where we want to fly. Yeah, there's clouds
Yeah.
on both sides, but there it is. That's where we're going. Okay, fine. But those clouds are moving, like
Yeah.
they're
I know.
moving. They're going to where we're trying to go. Like that's so obvious now. But
Yeah.
in the moment, it's like I just wanted to angle fly. I wanted to make my people happy. And man, that's hard, dude. That is hard. I'm trying to be really honest because I think we need to, yeah, it's just hard to say, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to just head down or whatever, head up,
So now
campfire. I don't know, something.
take this whole situation, transplant it to SkyDeck Chicago, have three of those in a week. and guys, we need rules. We need to
Oh man.
we need to figure out who's leading because we can't wait until someone dies
Yeah.
or two people die to sort this out.
Yeah.
Um, and it isn't a lack of experience for the two of you guys, but it can't, like, if you read the incident reports in parachutists, it's one of the few things that I really read anymore in the
Uh-huh.
magazine.
Yeah.
Almost every time there's a fatality, they'll mention the chain of events that led up to that
Yeah.
fatality, and if it's broken at any point, then
Yeah.
this is a different outcome. And so I think that in scenarios like the one you described, you guys got wildly lucky on the big blue sky
Yeah.
idea.
I think so.
Yeah, uh, and I am curious afterwards. I mean, obviously
Hmm.
there was a discussion with the belly group. How did the organizer take that, or did you guys chat? How was that sort of unpackaged?
Yeah, no, we definitely did chat, and we tried to figure out exactly what happened, what should we have done differently, and they were very nice about it, but they were also like, it was serious. It was a
Yeah,
big deal. Um, it it might not have been as close as I'm making it sound because they weren't to that scared angry. You know how when it's super close, people get that scared angry
yeah,
thing. So it wasn't that much, but it was just like, hey, what happened?
yeah,
Why were you guys in our space? Um, and so that forced us to like, okay, what did happen? What did we do? And what could have been done differently? And so that forced me and the other organizer to talk at length. What did we do? What decisions did we make? Okay, when I flipped my back and you led us, why did you lead us that direction? What happened? Where did we go? And we looked at the video over and over. Then we talked with the flyer who opened close to the belly group, like, okay, how did you break off? One of the things was that his break off was pretty much a hard 90 from our line of flight. It's like, okay, well, there's only four of us. You didn't have to do that hard 90. We're not blaming him. I mean, because he's
sure,
a less experienced jumper. So in no way are we saying it's his fault only, but that was,
yeah.
like you said, the chain of events, all the pebbles that pile up. That was one of those things that added to it. Um,
So
so
I would
yeah,
say that if I'm in a say a three-way, I'm leading a three-way. I'm the leader. There's one person on either side of me that
yeah,
I'm going to teach them to take the 90-degree break off because that's the most separation that we can get. And 90 is the maximum. And so when you said, well, you don't necessarily need to take that, I probably would if it was me on the outside of the line.
okay,
And that 90 was available to me because that's the most separation. But what else I wanted to say was that in your original plan, okay, just for clarity, let's say jump run was north because everyone will understand that. You took a
sure,
right turn out of the plane and went east,
okay,
and say those are 90 degrees, right? And so jump run continues north. You took a right out of the plane and went east, and you
okay,
said you might make a turn in case you're getting too far away, which I assume then would be a left turn to go more north, um, to get in a better wind position. That because if you're flying north, that's probably into the winds as they
yep,
exist.
yep,
Um, and so a left turn, and so this is something that I kind of harp on with my groups at Summerfest is if we have those 90-degree angles, that the turn to the north to get in a better wind position is going to be a 45. That I will not go straight north after that turn. It will still be northeast. So
yeah,
that now if we're going northeast, I don't sorry about the night hand, but we're going northeast,
mm-hmm,
that the person who breaks off 90 is now not heading straight back towards jump run, but they are now on a 45 to jump run. If all that math works out, we're not getting out a protractor, of course, but like at least, and then when you talk to your group, it has to be, hey, if you're on the inside of that turn relative to jump run, when your canopy opens, you don't go any closer to jump run at that point. Like you need to stay away from jump
yeah,
run until you see not just the group that left after us, but the group that left after them, because we've
mm-hmm,
probably long gone from the first the group that came out after us. We're now into the second or potentially third group, and you need to see those guys open before you turn your canopy back to the drop zone.
Yeah. 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 And see, there was, man, I mean, hindsight's 2020 and makes me feel dumb, but another thing is that belly group behind us, it's older guys. They admittedly told us that they like to open lower. You know, like, I mean, that was part of our conversation.
Yeah.
So it's like, man, I feel so dumb. Like, it was so obviously clear. A lot of things we could have done differently. So, yeah. Yeah. So there it is. I hope people can learn from that. You know, it just made me, because I was that close to saying, no, we're just going to do a vertical jump. We're not doing it. And I was like, no, it's okay. There's the lane. It's fine. The other organizer, he was like super excited. I was excited. You know, we want to, you know, it's like, it's so hard to just say, no, we're not doing it.
Yeah. I mean, experience is the best teacher, you know, and I could have explained that whole situation to you 6 months ago, and until you have it yourself, it's just some blah 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 for me, you know, and maybe some of it sticks, but the truth is that a lot of the learning that we have is just the mistakes that we made, and you know, hopefully those mistakes didn't kill you, and you can make new mistakes.
Yeah. Well, it was definitely a learning experience, and I'm thankful that those guys, they're very nice guys. Those belly guys. One of the organizers that was organizing that particular jump, his name's Doug. Just such a kind, nice guy. Like he's just been really, really nice and supportive of me and what we're doing, and so I'm just thankful for that culture that we have at Spaceland San Marcos. That those guys are like, they want to see us have fun. They want us to do our thing. They're not trying to stop us. They want to be safe. They want us to be safe, and I think it's really cool. So I'm thankful for them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the nice is it definitely could be the other way, where people are
angry
and
they totally could have just like yelled at us and been mad and mean and berated us, but they were very cool about it. Yeah, very cool. Okay, so can we jump into the next thing?
Yeah.
Okay, so the comment that we had, question that we had from a listener. Let me find it. Basically, and I think I sent this to you. I mean, I know I did. She said, you know, she asked us, can you please talk about lightly loaded canopies and accuracy? So how do you set up in the pattern and continue in a pattern when thermals are keeping you from losing altitude, maybe even causing you to gain altitude? And then she also said specifically at her drop zone, in the landing pattern on a no wind day, the landing area is, from, if I'm understanding correctly, is this what you understood? It sounds like the landing area is very close to the runway, so that the boundary is like, that landing area is right up next to the runway, which is very similar to Spaceland San Marcos. And you've jumped with us, so you know what that's like. And there's lots of drop zones that are like that.
Yeah.
So she said she's got a 1.03 wing loading. Sometimes it's a little bit less. So she's flying a bigger canopy with a light weight. And so she's got this flat glide ratio, right? So if she's going to stay off of the runway, she doesn't want to cross the runway low, but that means that she's turning onto final at an altitude that's going to force her to go long. Did I understand that correctly? Is that what you understood?
Man, I read it this afternoon, but let me just, everything you're saying sounds familiar.
So I think she's on a lightly loaded canopy. So when she does her downwind, and then she has to turn on her crosswind before she gets to the runway, because she doesn't want to turn across the runway too low, which makes sense. I think she's trying to respect the runway. She's trying to respect the pilot, the planes, the landing pattern of the planes. So if she turns on her crosswind And then final, it's forcing her to then go long, or at least that's what she feels like. So she's asking, how do I deal with this? I'm on a lightly loaded canopy. What do I do? Especially if I'm flying and I think I'm going to be okay, but then I catch a thermal, I gain altitude, but I'm already in the landing pattern. What do I do?
Whew. So, it sounds like that she's going to at least be well prepared for canopy accuracy when she goes to other drop zones that are. Sounds like she's dealing with a situation that is not as nice as most places. To start with, a canopy wing loading of 1.03, I think of as conservative. I think that's just beyond what a student would be on. It's really difficult to answer the question about thermals. Like that's such an unpredictable variable. What the first thing that came to mind, I guess, when I read her message from you, was that what a lot of people don't do is thinking about their bases, and that means when you're flying your pattern from jump one until whenever you're done for the day, that you've got first base, second base, and third base that correspond to your first base would be like, where am I starting my downwind part of my pattern? Second base would be, where do I turn crosswind? And third base would be, where do I turn to final? And those, your first, second, third base, canopy pilots that are out for competition you're gonna see them walking the landing area or wherever they're gonna overfly the entry gates, to visually walk that out. And so that when they're under canopy, whatever the plan was for jump one, they're going to look down whenever that audible goes off. And sorry, I'm saying audible, but for most people these days, your audible altimeter has low speed beeps as well. And I think you should be programming those to wherever you intend to fly your pattern. Mine are programmed at 1,800, 1,400, and 1,000 feet. And so if you start getting into that habit of an audible with a visual look down, where am I right now when my first beat goes off, you are going to start to train yourself to be more accurate on the placement of your landings and being in the right place. Because, okay, say arbitrarily a student pattern, I'm going to start my downwind at 1,000 feet. That's my first base. My second base goes off at 600 feet, and my third base goes off at 300 feet.
Yeah.
If I'm not where I intended to be, I'm on my way, but I'm not where I meant to be for first base, and the 1,000 feet goes off, I immediately started cutting the corner to second base. First base is gone. And hopefully that diagonal line, instead of the perpendicular lines I was about to take, that sort of the hypotenuse of the triangle there, that gets me to second base by 600 feet. Gotcha. But if it doesn't, and I'm going to come up short of that line, I immediately bail on that and start getting to third base, so that I can turn to final at the right time. But again, it's the process of a beep, a look down, a beep, a look down. And I all the time talk about this when people talk about the canopy pattern, and people be like, yeah, I'm not doing any of that. And I'm thinking, how are you landing where you want to land at
where are you looking?
Like what process are you using? Because this is the process. And so it almost stuns me that people are like, yeah, that's a good idea. Okay. Well, so that would be my first advice to her if it's a female, is that you start doing that, and you get your audible set up. And from jump one, I made all my bases, but I came up 300 feet short. Cool. Move your bases for the next jump. Mm-hmm. And then once you get used to the process, then the wind condition changed slightly. Okay, cool. And I'm at my home drop zone. My mental mapping is pretty good. Like I have an overhead image in my mind. So now it's not coming from the north, it's coming kind of from the northwest. Okay, I'm going to take my sort of L-shaped pattern in my three bases and just turn it about 45 degrees. And where does that put my bases now? Okay, cool. Let me go give that a shot. And it might not be perfect.
Yeah.
But at least you have a system that you can build on from jump to jump.
Mm-hmm.
Turbulence is very difficult, or air pockets or hot thermals or whatever, however she called it. But that stuff
Mm-hmm.
is really, it's so unpredictable and the amount is so difficult. But say you're on final, you just turned on final. She said 250, 300 feet, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel yourself go up.
Yeah.
Well, you just say arbitrarily, you just gained 100 feet. That would be a massive thermal. But now
Sure.
you're going to go, if you're on a 3-to-1, maybe you're going to go hundreds of feet long.
Yeah.
And so what can you do? Now you're starting to think about things like, should I go into deep breaks? And I got to come back to that because turbulence and deep breaks is an interesting idea itself. But deep breaks, bigger body position. But the thing that I would want to caution her about in that moment is doing things like sachets, which is a common sort of old school way to not go long, but hopefully very clear now that after however many canopy collisions it took us to decide that sachets aren't a good idea, the people behind you, that's super unpredictable behavior for whoever's behind you in the pattern. And if
Mm-hmm.
they are, say they're looking at somebody else and are flying forward, checking off this jumper over here, and you just sashayed over 30 feet, their clear lane now is potentially in your burble or maybe a collision, and that's way worse than going a little bit long.
Yeah. And sachet, just to make sure everybody knows, you mean just like kind of weaving back and forth side to side, like S turns as you're moving forward, right?
Right. It's diving turns, but yeah,
Yeah.
you're S turning or whatever you want to call it, but you kind of swing out from the canopy and swing out from the canopy.
Yeah. Left to
So
right to left to right, just to bleed off,
yeah,
to make yourself go further in a shorter distance.
you get to the ground without going as far forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. So
Sachets are
large body
not a good
position,
idea, is what you're saying.
I totally disagree with sachets, and
Okay.
there's I can't say never. So many things can happen before never gets here. That
Yeah.
is there a building in front of you? Is there a moving aircraft? Okay, well then some other thing is better and risking a potential canopy collision behind you.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that. I'm
Yeah.
just saying
Props
that
to the
under
face.
normal
Okay, sachet.
circumstances,
Yeah.
you're in the main landing area making sachets because you're going to overshoot the P pit is a horrible idea.
Okay.
Cool. Most people don't think about a big body position like starfishing when they're under canopy, getting some cupped air in their middle to try and get as much resistance to the wind as they can. But it's actually quite effective. If you're doing canopy flocking, you are going to need tools like that. You're going to need small body position. You need legs forward. You're going to need brakes. You're going to need rears. You're going to all kinds of stuff to try and match the pace of the leader because your wing loadings are just not the same. So those kinds of skills, and again, this is like I don't remember what Kurt Genie's introductory course is for, but Flight One has like 101 and 102, which are their introductory courses. This is the bread and butter of a first canopy course, and it honestly sounds like that is maybe something that this person would want to consider,
Yeah.
so that if those tools are not immediately available or part of her thought process, that they become that way. And
Yeah.
and for anybody who might be listening, do you know what USPA recommends for canopy courses? I think you need one now for a B license. Is that right? You have to take one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
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 Okay, but is there a recommendation for recurrent canopy courses?
What do you
Do you
mean?
know? Like one a year or one every 2 years
Not
or
that I know of. I mean, no, I don't know. I don't think so.
I'm not talking to somebody about getting that in there.
Yeah.
But a canopy course every year is a good start. Could be
Mhm.
more, but considering how much time we all spend working on our free fall skills in the tunnel and in the sky and getting coaching and blah blah blah, and then we just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go land my parachute. Man, go get some coaching. I mean, there's Kurt and Jeannie Bartholomew have this freaking wall of gold medals of all the competitions that they've been to, or anybody from Flight One. Like, there's some super. Greg Windmiller runs a course. Brian Germain runs a course. I don't know off the top of my head. I don't know everybody's website, but they could certainly find that stuff on Facebook.
Yeah.
But Flight One, Kurt G. Bartholomew, the Alter Ego Project, Greg Windmiller. I can't remember his platform. He's a former Golden Knight competitive canopy pilot,
Hmm.
and Brian Germain actually manufactures parachutes under his own design. He wrote a book called the
The
Parachutinist
the
Pilot or something like that.
yeah, I think that's it.
Parachutinist Pilot.
Yeah.
And just generally speaking, these are people that have forgotten more about flying a canopy than most of us are going to know in our life,
Hmm.
and they're dedicating a whole bunch of time to trying to make people better and safer under canopy, which is hopefully something that we all want. So I mean, I'm not trying to push her off on other people, but just I guess the skill set that comes with those introductory courses are the things that she's talking about.
Yeah.
Of like, how do I deal with this? I'm going to go long. How do I got thermals? What's my body position? What are the tools in my toolkit that I can use in these moments?
Well,
And as
I
always,
took a
if, oops, sorry, go ahead.
no, I took a course with Jeannie Bartholomew. Man, that was like it was probably 2015 or 2016, so eight years ago. And I still think about the stuff that she taught me, like almost every time. Not every time, that's an exaggeration, but a lot. I think
Yeah.
about it on a regular basis. And that it was the like lowest, most basic beginner course that they taught that they have. You know, it was not advanced swooping. It was just the most basic one they have. And I learned so much from Jeannie, and I still think about the stuff that she taught me. And a lot of that stuff that she covered in that course is in the Crave canopy piloting course that Kurt and Jeannie teach. So you can just get a subscription to Crave for $15 a month and learn a lot of that same stuff.
Yeah.
Now, I will tell you, if you go take a course, a camp with Jeannie in person, you're going to learn way more because there she is in person, watching you fly, watching you. She's filming your landings, like talking to you about you. That's way better,
Yeah.
obviously. But in the meantime, you can do the Crave course, and it's very helpful. Very helpful.
Yeah. I think the response that most people come out of those courses with is kind of like, man, how am I still alive that I didn't know all those things? Uh, like, how did I
Yeah.
get to this point?
How did I not
Um,
kill myself yet?
Yeah, I used to be big into rock climbing years ago, and every time I bought a new piece for my rack, I'd be like, how did I not have this? This is quintessential to my climbing career. Uh, and yeah,
Uh,
so I would highly recommend that.
yeah.
Is there anything else that she talked about that we didn't talk about? Um, oh, I did want to say one thing. There was a woman that used to jump at Skyler Chicago. Um, Very experienced free flyer, like super good in the big wave scene. Um, and she was coming in on a northbound landing when the winds were from the east. And so they're kind of rolling across the hangar. And it's a pretty big hangar.
Okay.
And she has video of this. Uh, and she was also on a lightly loaded canopy. Um, and her GoPro for some reason was still on. And she's only about 20 or 30 feet off the deck. Now, and she's looking at the ground, and you can see her shadow like running up to her.
Hmm.
And in her shadow, you see her hit the turbulence, and her canopy just folds up.
Oh wow.
Um, and I think she broke her pelvis for sure.
Mm.
I don't know what else. She was injured for a little while, but she made a
Hmm.
full recovery. Everything's good.
Yeah.
I don't think she's jumping anymore, but not because of that.
Yeah.
But in the aftermath of that, she downsized and got some kind of real mild. I'm sure the manufacturer's going to be mad at me saying that, but a mild cross brace canopy, like a Chaos or something. I think it was a Chaos 84. Um, for that exact reason, though, she had no interest in swooping. She's going to
Uh-huh.
make straight in approaches to final, but she was
Yeah.
lightly loaded in a non-cross brace canopy, way, way, way more susceptible to turbulence than a more heavily
Hmm.
loaded cross brace canopy. That the canopy just has more
Yeah.
structure to
Yeah.
the thing. And for those
Hmm.
people who don't have that, then they get into a situation like this woman is describing where she's hitting turbulence. That's the point where I wanted to come back to, because if you are in turbulence, I think you need to let your canopy fly. I think that depressurizing it or slowing it down in that moment is probably the wrong idea. Um, but I will also add that, and this is difficult to even say, but if I was in brakes for some reason and I hit turbulence, I think my first response would just be to let it fly. But
Okay.
there's potentially an unweighted moment, or like the swing set when you swung up and they got slack in the lines and you snapped
Yep.
back down.
Yes.
That can
Yes.
happen under canopy. And if you hit turbulence and go up and for some reason are unweighted or even lightly weighted under your canopy, and you let the canopy fly as it wants with no tension and the lines are very reduced tension, you can have line twists very close to the ground.
Mm.
And that's also a pretty scary situation, which is why most people let it up immediately to try. But say, for instance, you were in deep breaks, I don't know that you want to get into that unweighted moment by letting the canopy just do whatever it wants and holding the brakes at that. Maybe better, as counterintuitive as that is right at this moment. But my canopy is so different than the one this woman was talking about that
Yeah.
I want the speed and pressure to instantly recover, which it will. It's a tough question.
Okay. So let me ask you this, kind of along those lines. The question I want to, what I want to get at is, where is the safe? I'm just going to say safest because I don't know how else to say it. But like, if someone's not interested in swooping, but they are interested in having the safest wing loading, where is that? Do you understand what I'm asking? Like,
Yeah,
is a light wing loading safer than a like a one wing loading? Is that better than a um, 0.7? I don't know. I mean, obviously, like, if you get super, I mean, not 0.7, like a 2. Sorry, I was going the wrong way. You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah.
a, because what I see sometimes, and it seems like it's usually girls, is that girls have been in the sport for a little bit, and they're not in, some girls now, some want to swoop, but I'm just talking about, this is a generalization. People don't you don't get pissed off. I'm just talking like, there's some, I see girls who, they just want to skydive and have fun. They're not super interested in swooping and doing all this crazy canopy stuff. And so they stay on these larger canopies for a longer time, but they're small, lightweight girls who are on these big canopies. My thought is, and I'm asking you to correct me if I'm wrong, my thought is like, man, you're on this really light wing loading, this giant canopy. You don't weigh very much. It seems to me that's actually not as safe as if you would just downsize a little bit. Like,
Mm.
rather than be on, you're 120 pounds and you're on a 180, why don't you just downsize to like a 140? I mean, in the right progression. I'm not saying do it crazy fast, but like, it seems to me if you get a little bit of weight under the canopy, is that, am I crazy? Is this the right way of
No, no.
thinking? Is that helpful
Well,
for people to think about? Like, what should we be telling people?
there was a time, and I don't want to speak for any manufacturer, but I was jumping. I was jumping a canopy, and I talked to the manufacturer about the proper wing loading, and their response was like, "Well, it wants to fly at about 1.6." Um,
Okay.
then this is getting up in the progression. So, and
Yeah.
I don't want to say the canopy, I don't want to say the manufacturer, but
Sure. That's
um,
fine.
but uh, I think that I don't know if manufacturers put that information out
Mm-hmm.
as if they're going to recommend a certain wing loading to people, because I feel like then that would come back to bite them if somebody
Yeah.
got hurt, and so they're
Yeah.
probably going to be pretty reluctant to do that.
Yeah.
The thought that came to mind when when you were talking about maybe you just want to get down to a 140 or 149 or whatever it was you
And I
said.
was just making up numbers. I don't know what
Yeah,
but you know what I'm trying to ask, right?
yeah. So just to put it in your mind, like how many times do you think somebody looked up their reserve and said, "Man, that's way too big"? Um,
Wait, what do you mean? I don't understand.
well, is it if you just had a malfunction? you
Uh-huh.
don't normally think my reserve is just too big for me right now.
Well,
I'd
but
really
that's
like to get on the ground fast. I'm giving you, it's not the same situation. It's not.
okay.
But just in the mind of that person, what are they getting out of downsizing? And maybe they're getting better ability to deal with turbulent situations. But otherwise, I would struggle to find too many reasons to say, oh yeah, you're a little girl and you're on a 190. You weigh 100 pounds and you're on a you're point 0.5 or point 0.6 out of the door. Um, you really need to get down. Ah, I don't know. The military guys we work with are jumping 400 square foot canopies, and uh, they're basically under a 10, and I
Wow.
mean, they're big dudes, but um,
Well, same
those
same same thing though. Same
right,
concept.
but those they get a lot of forgiveness for their mistakes out of the canopies there. That says
Huh. Okay. I mean that is different than what I've been thinking for a while. I just kind of thought that not heavily loaded, but somewhere in that medium range was a more and I'm saying it's assumption. My assumption was that somewhere in that middle range, as you loaded it
Hmm.
a little bit of wing loading would somehow give it more responsiveness, more it would fly better
Oh
because
yeah,
it has a little bit of weight on it.
yeah. So I totally agree with that. That is true.
Okay. Okay.
Canopies are going to be more responsive and their performance is going to be better as you weight them appropriately. I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But whether or not that's, you know, is that what that person wants, or they just want to get down on the ground safely, and
Okay.
that's kind of harder to say.
Okay. Okay.
But as
That's good.
as an interesting thing to think about, I watched a good friend get hurt, like at a couple hundred jumps, and I mean, seriously, he got seriously hurt messing up at a canopy. Well, we're all a product of our experiences, and I started going real slow. Like I was gonna downsize, and I didn't. And so I stayed on a Spectre 135 until I had around 1,000 jumps, and everybody around me was already on velocities and I mean 1,000 jumps,
Yeah.
and I think that I didn't really get it about cutting away. What are you talking about? What are these line twists that you have to cut away from? Because on a Spectre, line twists are an inconvenience at best. Uh,
And
and
Spectre is a 7 cell, right?
7 cell, it's like a reserve with a ZP. Um,
Yeah.
and uh, and then I
And
jumped.
doesn't
I
it? I mean,
borrowed.
doesn't it? It doesn't have much of a glide ratio, does it?
No, I mean it's a reserve with ZP.
Yeah.
It's but I mean it would open up with 15 line twists, and I'd be like, oh, all right, here we go. You know,
15.
um, the,
You
then
got
I
15 line
borrowed.
twists on your velo. Oh shoot.
Yeah, you're out of there, right?
Yeah.
Um, I borrowed a stiletto, and I made 20 jumps on a stiletto, and it banged me open, and I had like 4 line twists, and it was totally unrecoverable. I was like, oh, well, this is what they were talking about. um,
Yeah.
so on that idea, like if you just want to get down to the ground safely and you don't care about
Hmm.
having a Ferrari across the grass, then I don't see too many downsides to a big canopy.
Okay. Yeah. Because
I
I've heard conversations and I've participated in conversations with people who are on very lightly loaded canopies, and I've a couple times I've found myself kind of encouraging them to like, hey, at least consider a little bit smaller. That's what I've
hmm,
in the past. Like, man, it just seems so big. Seems like it's hard for them to fly, and maybe not. But I mean, that's why I'm asking. I really do appreciate. I want to know
yeah.
all the perspectives, all the thoughts, all the information. And I mean, I'm not saying that your opinion is end all be all, but I do care.
No, I I also have to add that I'm super cautious about making any suggestion that people downsize. Um, and it isn't because of something happened to me personally, but I was around for a fatality when someone had been encouraged to downsize and then flew their canopy the way that the previous canopy had accepted, and the new canopy didn't accept that.
Mm.
And they're not with us anymore. And
Hmm.
I think that the person who did that recommendation, I mean, this is kind of outside this podcast, that they don't have a lot of introspection personally, but if they did, then they would feel pretty bad about that
Yeah,
recommendation, because
absolutely.
they was more than a recommendation. It was kind of pushing the person to downsize. And I mean, you want to hand out information? Absolutely. You want to talk about what a smaller wing is going to do, what a specific wing is going to perform like. I'm happy to do that. Should I downsize? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a tough one to say. Um, I can say when I think people shouldn't, but it's harder to say when they should.
Hmm. Well, that's good. Thank you. Okay. Anything else from that listener
Well,
question,
I just
comment?
glanced
Anything
at
that
it
you?
because I wanted to try and see if we were covering everything. And she said that she does make her turn to final over an open field that doesn't have a fence, but is technically landing off. And so,
Yeah.
um, when I read that, I thought, well, if that's, even if it's landing off, if you have a big open field without a fence that's just prior to the drop zone, then just make sure that you're erring on the side of caution towards that big open field. And if you land off, who cares?
Yeah.
Unless it's
One.
Farmer Brown going to shoot at you.
Yeah. One thing she said. I'm trying to find it. I am a 1.03 wing loading, sometimes less, and will never turn lower than 250 feet. What do you think she means by that?
Well, I mean, I can't say what her reasoning is, but turning close to the ground hurts people. So
Is
maybe
that
she's
what
just
she's?
saying, like, I'm at 250, I'm turning to final.
I'm not turning anymore. If wherever I'm
And that's
facing at
it.
250 feet, that's where I'm going.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I think,
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
that a lot can happen between now and never. And that may be a rule that you eventually break because you're pointed at a highway at 250 feet, and those semis aren't going to be kind to you.
Yeah. 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 I was when I was a pretty newer jumper. I honestly do not remember how many jumps I had, but I had an opportunity to go make some jumps from a helicopter. A guy that I knew was like, "Hey, I've got this helicopter. Come jump with us." Cool. So I went out there, and it was at a private little. I'm gonna say ranch, but it wasn't a ranch. It was a small area, and so we're taking off from this field that's like 20 acres. It was not a very big field, maybe not even 20 acres. I mean, it was a square area. Take off in the helicopter. We were going up to like, I don't know, 5 or 6 thousand feet, jumping out of the helicopter, flying. And then, and so the first like one or two jumps, and I was a younger jumper, very inexperienced. The first couple of jumps, luckily, I landed pretty much where I was trying to land in the area. But I think it was the third or fourth one. I remember I'm coming in on final, and I am obviously going to go long. And long is a line of big, tall pine trees, or not, yeah, some kind of tree like pine and mesquite. And then on the other side of those
Mesquite.
is, and then on the other side of those is the highway. I mean, it was a county road, but it's still, I mean, cars driving like 65 miles an hour. I was like, oh crap, and I'm going towards them. And I was like, I'm at 100 feet or 150, 200 feet. It's like, okay, I either go through these trees or over these trees into the highway, or I turn. And I was like, I just tried my best to do like a half break, like slow turn to get away from these trees. And luckily it ended up okay. I landed and it was fine. But it's like, man, I had to turn, like I had to. I had no other option as far as I could
Yeah.
understand at that moment. It's like, this is what I have to do. So,
Man, mesquite trees are thorny, huh? That would have been bad.
oh, oh yeah, they're huge. Yeah, big old,
Yeah.
not fun.
That's it. I mean, you just described a flat turn, right? So that's
Yeah,
another tool that is going to be discussed in hopefully any canopy course.
yeah, yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
So,
I hope that's helpful to her. I hope she hears this and can take something from it.
yeah. And if not, I mean, the text was just a tiny bit um, cryptic, I guess, in my experience or my opinion. A couple different things that. So if we didn't touch on everything she wanted, maybe she can write us back.
Yeah. Yeah,
We
sure.
can always talk about it again.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. All
We get
right.
into
Well,
it. It's been an hour and
yeah,
five
man.
minutes
An hour and
of
five.
excellent discussion about important topics that are going to keep people safe.
Yes, that's right. So there you
Yes.
go.
You have spent your hour wisely.
Wesley. There it is.
Yeah. All
All
right.
right. It's all you,
So,
man. Go for it.
yep. Thanks everybody for joining me and Chris again. Hopefully, man, I hope next week we're gonna have Nick or Lindsay Fenner on. Both of them have interesting things to talk about. Separate. They're a married couple, and I would like to have them on separately just because they have such interesting things to talk about. But at some point, Nick is going to get on. He went through a dust devil and lost his lower legs
Oh,
as a
wow.
consequence, and so that is a relatively unique experience that
Oh, man.
I have cajoled him into being willing to talk about.
Wow.
So hopefully that's coming up in the near future. But if not, there are a variety of other people that we will hopefully have on, and
Yeah.
we should at least preemptively say that you're gonna record at Summerfest with a live audience. I don't know exactly how we're gonna work that out, but yeah,
Goose.
sorry,
Goose.
we
Yeah.
are gonna record with a live audience of hopefully beginner angle
2
flyers
people.
from all of my groups. They're gonna sit and ask questions in a live Q&A. We'll see.
I hope so. I think that'd be so fun. I hope so.
Yeah. So people can eat your up for that. But anyway, thanks for joining us again this week. And yeah, go jump with some friends and have a good time. And remember what you learned in Crave so you can do more and be better.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, JRuss.
Cool. See you guys.
Bye.